Start this morning with accountability in Afghanistan. A Texas congressman has spent 3 years now trying to get to the bottom of why the U.S. withdrawal from there was so botched. He just released his findings, but the question many are asking is why now, less than 2 months before the election? That's one of our questions for Congressman McCaul. He's the chairman of that U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee and a Republican who represents parts of Central Texas. Mr. Chairman, welcome back to the program. Let's get right to it here. One of the most interesting parts of this report, I think, is you guys said as the U.S. withdrew troops in 2021, it did not simultaneously withdraw diplomats and their families, which left them exposed there. That was a so-called fatal flaw in President Biden's plan to leave Afghanistan, is what the report concludes.
The State Department is charged by federal law, by Congress, to initiate an evacuation plan. It's called a NEO. They continue to refuse to implement a plan until the day the Taliban actually overran Kabul. By that time, it was too late. Jason, I'm not trying to score political points, even though I'm being accused of that today. I want to get to the truth, like a federal prosecutor would. I didn't make arbitrary conclusions. I weighed the facts, evidence, came to an investigation that's leading up, to the top. But the bottom line here and goal is to make sure this never happens again. We had Saigon, we had Kabul, we had an office to deal with this that the Biden administration shut down prior to the Taliban takeover. So we want to legislate an emergency evacuation plan that everybody knows who's in charge, because nobody knew who was in charge at the time. The military had a very different objective than the White House and state. State had the optics of politics, the optics of everything's fine, it's going to plan. Sure. You're not going to see helicopters like Saigon. And we know it just didn't end up that way.
You said this is not about politics, but why release it now, just 2 months before the election?
Yeah, and I get asked that a lot. This was not my timing. I didn't choose this by design. The timing is a result of not being able to get documents, witness testimony, having to serve subpoenas. It took me 8 months to get Jen Psaki to testify. Secretary Blinken is still refusing to testify, even though I've served a subpoena and I will threaten him with contempt. They have stonewalled this investigation in the hopes that it would go after the election, so they wouldn't have to deal with this. What they didn't know is that I had enough already to publish a report, but I would have preferred to have, delivered this a year ago. I didn't have the evidence.
Mr. Chairman, you said you hope this leads to legislative and policy solutions. Is there a piece of legislation, a bill that you would present or you think is going to come out of this that would prevent such a disaster from ever happening again?
Absolutely. I mean, number one, you can't have this bifurcation of military and state. They need to be integrated. Diplomatic Security Corps needs to be reporting straight to the Secretary of State. We need a legislation that provides direct guidance as to who's in charge, what needs to be done, when the plan needs to be executed. All those things were missing. There was no plan, and that's why you saw what you saw. I talked to the Secretary about this very extensively, and I think this is one area of good faith where I do think I can work with him to try to come up with legislation to ensure this never happens again.
Mr. Chairman, always appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jason.